It's that time again for pumpkin spice lattes. If you're watching this and thinking I've got the season wrong, then you know why calendars matter. Last year, Pilgrimage Films was ready to head out and film some religious festivals. So we rented a camera, we got all this gear together, and then we were told it was the wrong month. Like, literally the wrong month. For some reason, their calendar added like another April or another August. It's kind of crazy, right?
I don't think he knows about 2nd April's, Pip.
And not only is renting all this equipment and finding out you're a month late mildly disappointing, it's clear we couldn't really understand Taiwanese folk religion as foreigners unless we actually understood the calendar. So we had to educate ourselves. And so that's why we thought it'd be important before going further in Taiwanese folk religion to talk about the calendar.
I'll show you how it works. Very simple, okay? There are 20-day weeks rotating through 8 solar sequences with very easy to remember names like Muluk, Ajao, Chuek.
No offense, this is confusing.
In this video, we're going to cover 6 reasons why the lunisolar calendar matters. So there's 2 objects that make calculating time pretty easy: the sun and the moon. The lunar calendar is based on phases of the moon, while the solar calendar is based on the position of the sun relative to the stars in the sky. Judaism and Taiwanese folk religion use a lunisolar calendar. Might as well get the perks of both, right? So rather than being a pure lunar calendar, lunisolar calendars bring the lunar part of the calendar into alignment with the solar part. And they do this through a process known as intercalation. That's a big fancy word for adding a leap day, or lunar calendars can add as much as a leap month. Lunar calendars count time using what is known as lunations. Basically the time it goes from new moon to not so moon to full moon again. So you can basically count using twilight books if you want to know the lunar cycle.
Sneaky. And extravagant.
But the moon is like a super speedy guy. So it does 12 lunations every 354-ish days. So that means the lunar year is going to be off by as many as 11 to 12 days per year. So you let that add up after a couple years and you might try to go plant some crops in September, only find out that it's actually April because the Gregorian calendar is a bit more accurate over years. So legend has it that the Emperor Huangdi invented the calendar in 2637 BCE, which is crazy that you'd go back that far in time and be like, this is when calendars were invented. But I gotta be honest, if there's one thing to invent to where like today we're like, oh, we can date that, calendar's probably a good one. So you might not realize this, but the year in China right now is 4,719. They actually have a different year system than our old classic 2021. And in Taiwan, we use what's called the Mingguo calendar. And the Chinese lunar calendar is also with this, as well as the Gregorian calendar. So that's 3 calendars, 3 fancy calendars.
And now there's all kinds of calendars. Nuns having fun. Outhouses, goats and trees.
The Mingguo calendar is actually unique to Taiwan, harkens back to our calendar wars of 1912. And it's really complex and it gets political, but a good way to think about it is when you build a calendar, you're going to build it based off of the dates which matter the most to your people group. So we know lunar calendars are great and solar calendars are great, but there's a lot of correction for the lunar calendar. So why would we use one or both of them together? So the first is seasons in solar terms. So focusing on just the sun or the moon doesn't have as many benefits as a lunar solar method. The ancient Chinese around the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, they benefited from a system known as the 24 solar terms. And basically they divided the year up into 24 different pieces that could be measured by the sun.
In the international meteorological field, the 24 solar terms are hailed as the 5th great invention of China.
And so they divided this calendar up and they had a great system like an almanac to basically plan their year out. Now, the Earth is massive and China's pretty huge. If you've ever seen a map and don't know how huge China is, you're probably really confused about geography. Like, it's massive. You have maps and then you have like China's like 90% of it. When you try to take something like a system like this and use it, it's gonna be very difficult because the north part of China is going to be very cold, but the southern part of China might actually have some tropical elements. It's that big of a difference. So different places are going to interpret it differently. It kind of gives them a structure, but they used this and it was very useful for making them successful and surviving and learning how to farm for thousands of years. The second reason would be ritual worship. So if you remember when we talked about Taiwanese folk religion, they cared about things being auspicious. So being able to look at something like the moon, the stars, that's really important for being able to read if it's an auspicious time. you got to think about this, right? You're an ancient person, and you know that if you see the sun at this position in the sky with these stars, and you go and plant your crops, you're gonna have a good harvest. Well, it might make sense then that other alignments of stars and other alignments of planets and the moon and that is going to affect other aspects of life. So maybe if you get married, you might say, oh, I want the sun to be in this position because it's gonna be very prosperous. And this can really affect things. About 10 years ago, there was a zodiac year where the year of the ox was about to end, and people were super afraid of the year of the tiger for some religious reasons. It was called a widow year. So 300 families in Beijing rushed to get married, and they called it grabbing the tail of the ox. Third, tides. At new moon and full moon, the sun and moon are aligned, and that means that the tides have a bigger maximum and a minimum. And I never thought this would make this huge difference in my life or something I'd notice. Like, I'm from Seattle, but generally the ocean kills us, so things like killer whales, they're not called pacifist whales.
Gone, demon fish! Adiosa! Andiamo! That's right! Boo-hoo!
So last summer we took a trip to Geelong during the Ghost Festival. And during this time they believe ghosts are on the earth, so they do a lot of rituals to get rid of spirits. And one of those is they build these boats and fill them with spirit money and burn them and send it out on the water. And the further it gets out, the ghosts are supposed to kind of follow after them. And there's a lot around it, but it's a very interesting festival. What we were seeing was like crazy. It was like most extreme elimination challenge. Like boats were hitting the water, styrofoam everywhere, there's fire. Well, while we were there, we met someone who was really, really upset because it turned out that at some point they did it during a different tide, and they knew that it was going to be a lot quieter and the boats would go really far. But somehow it had switched, and so it was happening at the highest tide, so it had huge waves. So it's just an interesting perspective that for him, the moon played a huge factor in when they should do this tradition, and he felt that it kind of robbed it of the beauty of how it was intended. So those are 3 reasons why Taiwanese folk religion uses the Lunisolar Calendar. Now, why would they use it in Judaism? I got to compare and contrast, but I love it. Jewish people also use a lunisolar calendar, and their calendar is complex because even counting time is different. Most of the world counts from midnight to midnight. It just makes sense, right? You have like a universal standard. But Jewish people from the book of Genesis get the idea of measuring from evening to evening. So their day actually starts when the sun goes down, and then the next day starts when the sun goes down, which is an interesting concept. I mean, imagine if your day started not with work, but it started with rest. Oh, it's a new day. I'm about to go sleep. I mean, that sounds awesome, right? So it's a very different way of looking at the world. The Hebrew calendar uses an intercalation method known as the metatonic cycle. So basically, every 19 years, 12 of those years are normal, and 7 of those years add a leap month. The Chinese lunar calendar also uses leap months, as we said. It's just a good way to kind of measure things. And a little math is used to kind of figure out which is which. But that also makes there be a pretty significant swing in when holidays are. All of you people who are always confused as to why Easter changes, and you're like, it's March, it's April. That would be because the lunar calendar combined with leap months makes a pretty big difference in when stuff happens. So most of us look at a Gregorian calendar and we think of it as this method to keep time. Like it's this method for knowing when historical events happened, compiling our past. You can be like, Alexander the Great did this at this day. And you're like, whatever he did, whatever made him great, right? You know it because you have a date attached and it's very consistent. That's the focus, is being able to have this consistent time, but also to be able to dial in events in history. But the Jewish calendar has a different focus. So that brings us to point number 4. When the calendar shifts, it's intentional and makes us consider time.
Do you know that the Jewish calendar is the only calendar with minutes on it?
The Hebrew calendar gives Jewish people this rhythm for their worship and their rituals throughout the year. There's a famous rabbi, Abraham Heschel, and he said that many religions create holy spaces with great reverence. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a church and made a really loud noise and then everybody looks at you and you're kind of like, this is awkward. I'm not supposed to make loud noises in churches.
Make it. Oh, please. Holy Toledo, it's good! It's good!
If you go into a church, it's expected to maybe be quiet or respectful and reverent. But Jewish worship sanctifies time instead of space. Not every religion can have a geographical presence or a temple. And the Jewish religion is set up in such a way that somebody can be all the way across the world, but his time is set aside for God. One thing we see in the scriptures is God is constantly asking people to be present, to remember, to be intentional. So lunisolar calendars are difficult to use in that they need correction, but there's something where you have to do math, you have to pay attention, you have to correct them. And one of the benefits of this is you get a mindset of intentional time to reflect on God, to do your specific festivals. Point number 5, the lunisolar calendar for Judeo-Christian worship gives them an identity. It shows them who they are as God's people. The calendar has all these events on it and different festivals. And these festivals are tied to historical events that really matter, such as the creation of the universe or Passover. And their identity is shown through these different incredible festivals. And it matters how they're celebrated because the calendar is able to align very specifically with different things like their harvest time, or to align with different moments where the earth feels a certain way, like festival booths where you're supposed to build this temporary shack and live in it.
I call Sukkot the Jewish picnic holiday because you get to eat your meals outside.
And you're supposed to feel this idea of you're insecure, but you're totally secure. And that feeling makes a huge difference when it's celebrated in the fall than if it's celebrated in, let's say, the summer. You know, it's gonna affect how you feel and understand these things. And the 6th reason, actually we do 6 here in Taiwan like this. And the 6th reason, the Jewish calendar is full of things that point towards Christ. For instance, have you ever wondered how Jesus could enter Jerusalem on Palm Sunday and people are literally going like, Hosanna, hail him, Hosanna. You have this huge crowd, right? Jesus comes in, it's like a massive celebration. They're like, this is the Messiah, guys. Like, everybody loves him. So how come a week later, they're ready to just throw him under the bus? Well, did you know that the night he's taken into captivity, it was Passover? So they measure their days from evening to evening. So the Jewish people, when evening hits, they're ready to start this Passover celebration. In a Passover Seder, they drink 4 cups of wine and go late into the night. They're up till midnight, 1 a.m., telling the story of the Passover. So the crowd that cheered Jesus, they've been worshiping during the Seder. So when Jesus is handed over in the Garden of Gethsemane, none of them would have been awake. They wouldn't have been out seeing it happen. And for those who celebrate Passover, there was also another event the next day where everybody was supposed to go to the temple at a certain time of day, 9 a.m. in the morning. And you'd have a shofar blow. And a shofar is this huge horn and just kind of like, kind of like the horn of Gondor.
The horn of Gondor.
So the shofar blows, and everybody is supposed to, at that point, be, at the temple for this huge religious celebration that's happening. So this whole time, Jesus is having this trial. All the people who greeted him were probably being faithful, religious Jewish people. So a lot of them were heartbroken, probably, to come out and find Jesus in the situation he was in. It was a very different feeling. Now, there's a crowd that shouts, "Crucify him," but a lot of those observant, God-fearing people were probably not there. But you learn that different calendars dictate the rhythm and the way that you live your life. And maybe you're not used to understanding a different calendar, but it's one of those things that could help you grow in your faith in Christianity and understanding it. And as a Taiwanese person, maybe you've never realized it, but you're actually pretty blessed to understand the lunar calendar. Not everybody kind of grows up with that. As a Christian, it's important for us to understand the Jewish calendar. It helps us understand where he came from and also shows us the beautiful, incredible work of Jesus and how God has prepared that for thousands of years through history and through the Jewish people. So I hope after this, all you guys are just chomping at the bit. Let's have a Zoom party and learn more about calendars, right guys? Probably not, but maybe you've learned something. If you've learned something, leave us a comment. Or maybe if you've learned nothing, tell us about your favorite time of year, your favorite festival, your favorite holiday. Is that related to a calendar we love, like the Gregorian thing, or one of them complex lunar calendars? And we'd love it if you subscribe. We are growing and we really want to reach more people, and that helps us a lot. Till next time, hope you have a great life. I don't know why I even say bye. I don't even need to say bye to you guys. You use it. Yeah. Sing we Hosanna, Hosanna, we sing. The Son of David, we crown him as King. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna.